Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Absolutely Podcast, the podcast specifically designed to help women defeat diet culture and live their dream healthy lifestyle. Today, I'm going to be chatting about the top macro tracking mistakes that I see women make because I remember thinking that macro tracking just didn't work for me when in reality, I was just doing things to mess up tracking my macros because when you do macro tracking correctly, it is going to work if you have the right numbers and you have the right strategy in place. So, these few mistakes are really common ones that I have seen a lot of my clients make, and I have made myself as well. So, I do not want you to fall into the same trap that I did. So I'm going to be going over those things today. But before I go into that, I'm going to be doing a little life update because I got some feedback that you guys like the life updates and just hearing more about Abbie's life and everything that I am up to. So we're going to chat about that first. And it has been a couple of weeks since I recorded my last podcast. I feel almost like I haven't been on the mic for a really long time. And it's kind of weird that I haven't recorded because I have not missed an episode since I started the Absolutely podcast. And last week, honestly, I just decided I needed to take a week for my mental health. Not necessarily, just needed to take a week off for the just sake of doing it. And I am not a billion-dollar podcast, so I can do that. But I also am really big on like the commitments that I make to myself and to you guys. So I want to make sure that I am recording every week. But that also gives me a couple of weeks of content and of life updates that I want to chat about. So, last time I gave a life update, I was heading to Stagecoach, which was so fun. Literally, I had the absolute best time at Stagecoach. I went with my boyfriend and his sister and a couple of his friends, and it was so much fun. So, anyways, I went. My boots were good. I know a lot of people were concerned that my boots were going to hurt, but I will say that warming them up and breaking them in on my walking pad, such a life hack. Like they did not hurt that bad. There were a couple of other girls that I was talking to that their boots hurt like really bad, and definitely by day 3 I was hurting and I still feel like a little bit sore in my feet. I think it kind of like reconstructed my feet when it came to walking around, but it was overall really good. The music was really good. My favorite person that I saw was Morgan Wallen. Post Malone set was also really good. Miranda Lambert. But it was overall just a good time, good vibes, dancing, having some fun drinks. And it was a really, really fun weekend. But I came back and was literally so tired. It took me like 4 business days to recover, I swear. I feel like my voice still like isn't recovered from Stagecoach. I think it was just all the dust, and then like allergies have been so bad here in Scottsdale. I thought that leaving Utah I wouldn't have allergies anymore, but I was severely wrong in that thought, and I've just been sneezing. My voice has just been like crackling and just sounding weird, and it's been definitely a wild ride. I can like literally feel a sneeze coming on right now. But it took me like 4 business days to recover. I don't know why. I don't know if I'm just like getting old or, or whatever, but it's so funny when I'm out of my routine and when I'm not sleeping as good. I definitely notice it, but it was 100% worth it. A couple of funny stories from Stagecoach. I went to a like influencer party. I don't know what to call it, but it was like a party before Stagecoach happened during the day. And we had like connection to go to it. So we showed up and I thought it was just going to be like vendors and like kind of what would happen and what you would think would happen at an influencer party. I'm saying that like I've been to so many, I literally have not. But it just had like a bunch of cute like little booths. There was like bandana booths and hat booths and food, drinks, all of that fun stuff, activities. And so we were just hanging out there before we went to the festival. And my guy friends like look over and they say, I think that's Joey, like Joey the Bachelor. I'm like, no, it's not. I look over and I don't think Joey will ever listen to this, but I'm like, that can't be him. Like he's way too tiny. But then I saw Kelsey. I'm like, oh my gosh, that totally is Joey. And he was wearing like a white bucket hat and Birkenstocks. And so I don't know. I didn't think it was him, but it was him, and he walked over to us, and I got to see them in the flesh. There was a lot of bachelor people there. My boyfriend decided to go get an IV, and he was getting an IV, and he texted me like, "Hey, come up and see and visit me while I'm getting my IV." And I walk up there, and he's just sitting up there with Joey and Kelsey, and Maria was there too, like literally just sitting next to him. So that was really a fun time. But it was fun to see them. And then didn't have too many other celebrity sightings. I did see Tom Sandoval, which that was a jump scare to say the least. He was wearing flared white pants, which was quite the bold decision to make at Stagecoach. But it was super fun. Those were my celeb sightings. But other than that, it was just a good time spending with my boyfriend and all of our friends and her sister and all of that stuff. So it was definitely a fun weekend. And now we're back, obviously, to normal routine. I've been back now for almost 2 weeks, and I honestly had like post Stagecoach like depression. Like I was sad like coming back from everything, and it was just such like a fun time. And I feel like that happens after any like big event. So definitely just getting back into a routine now, and I'm still in my calorie deficit phase. I did hit a new low before going to Stagecoach, like literally the day we left. I hit a new low. Let me pull it up so I have the data. I know you guys probably don't care, but whatever. I want to give you a picture of how things are going. So on Thursday before I left, I was 146.2, which I was kind of shook by that low weigh-in because I wasn't necessarily anticipating that. And then we've been a little bit higher since then, but as we know, my body responds in that way. Is like after my cycle, it'll go down and then it'll kind of go back up and then go back down again. So next week, I do expect to see another drop. So I will let you guys know, but I definitely like am feeling overall leaner. I am feeling the effects of the deficit as well. Like I'm definitely feeling a little hungry, a little low on energy, and a little bit like I am ready to stop dieting for a second. I feel like I always hit this point in my deficit phase where I'm like, yeah, going back up to maintenance sounds pretty freaking good right now. And I feel like I'm nearing that. I do go to Mexico in 2 weeks over Memorial Day weekend. So I'm definitely going to be doing the deficit through that. And then, not through Mexico, but up until we go to Mexico. And then afterwards, I have a bachelorette party, which my friend Emma, it's going to be her wedding. And we're going to do a bachelorette party here in Phoenix. So it isn't a ton of traveling, but still will be kind of off of my routine, obviously. So I anticipate to do my deficit on the days that I am home, and then go to the bachelorette party, come back, maybe do the deficit for another week or so, and then reverse diet out of it. So that is my game plan for now, but that would put me at like 8 to 10 weeks, like in a deficit, like actually in it and not like traveling or whatever. So that is what I want to do, but we're seeing progress. We're doing good. We are hitting our protocols even when we don't want to. And it's overall a good time. So feeling good doing that. But yeah, definitely have a few big weeks coming up. I'm going to Cabo, which I am so excited about. I feel like I definitely am in need of a vacation. I'm going to take the week off of calls and check-ins and all of that. Working for yourself is fantastic, but the first few years that I worked for myself, and now I'm gearing up on year 3. So the first couple years I worked for myself, honestly, up until like this past year, I did not take any time off, like no weekends, nothing. Like I was working every single day, taking calls every single day. And that definitely led to a little bit of feelings of burnout. I will admit that. And so the past year or so, I have taken more of a priority of taking weekends off, making sure I am taking a vacation twice a year where I'm not doing like check-ins or calls. And that has helped tremendously just with me having the zest for life and for my business and being excited to show up for my clients and for my ladies and just being creative and overall stuff like that. But when you love your job, when you work for yourself, it is really hard to take time off. And I feel like no one talks about that. It's hard to just like mentally justify that like you can and should take time off. And I'm just like a very like type A, love working, love what I do. So it is hard for me to recognize like, hey girl, you need to take some time off. So we're going to be taking time off in the next couple of weeks to go to Mexico, and then that will be super fun. And then I come back, have 3 or 4 days in my normal routine, and then I'm going to the bachelorette party, but that's just down the street. So that will be fun. My boyfriend's gonna be watching my dog, so that will be funny. Him and Archie are BFFs. And Archie is very excited. I told Archie that he's going to be spending time at Camp Bobby's house. So that will be fun. But that is kind of all the life updates I have for now. I literally have just been working out, working, golfing, and that's pretty much it. So nothing else too much to report. We'll have more updates after Mexico, Bachelorette, and all of that fun stuff. But let's dive into the episode now. Enough about me. Let's talk about the top macro tracking mistakes that I see women make. So, number one is that I see women using the wrong macros for their body. A lot of times, women come to me and they say, macros didn't work for me. And I ask them, where did they get their macros? And a lot of times it's just from a random online calculator, or they got it from like some sort of like influencer meal plan, or they purchased macro calculator from someone that didn't take into account all of their different things. So using the wrong macros, you're not going to get the right results for your body. If you use the wrong recipe to make something, you're not going to have the desired outcome. Like, for instance, if you're trying to bake cookies and you are using the wrong ratios of flour, sugar, eggs, like, you're not going to get the cookies that you want. So macros wise, the same thing. You have to have the right recipe for your body. And when I'm personally calculating my macros for my clients or for myself, I'm taking into account a lot of different things. Number one, your start point. Like, where is your metabolism and hormones at right now? We have to take that into consideration before just blindly throwing out macros for you. When I was doing the Bikini Body Boot Camp protocols, which just started this week, which has been so much fun already, by the way. But when I was doing that, I was going over everyone's starting point of where they're at activity level wise, metabolism wise, and then giving them numbers accordingly. If you don't do that, it's just basically going to be a computer firing off numbers and not taking into account those things. So making sure you have the right numbers is so key to actually being able to see results. So I highly suggest you find someone that is like a real person. And yes, you might need to like pay a little bit more money or whatever, but in the grand scheme of things, it is so worth it when you have macros that actually are designed for your body. I have done this for a few different people, depending on like kind of the case. If you want me to calculate your macros, I'm totally down for that. You can DM me to help you out with that. But it is so important to have an actual person looking over like where your starting point is at and making a plan from there according to your goals. So that is my number one thing, is that you're using the wrong macros. When I started tracking macros, was using the total wrong macros. Oh my gosh, I paid this person to calculate my macros for me, and they gave me a 1,400 calorie meal plan. Literally, like, the thought of that now makes me actually want to vomit, because I am not a 1,400 calorie body. Like, I need to be eating a lot more calories. I'm 5'9". I'm tall, I have muscle. Like, I don't need to be eating 1,400 calories. So if you don't have the right person calculating your macros, or you're just using a random online calculator, no wonder why that's not working for you and you feel miserable. I remember doing that meal plan and being like, I hate macros. I'm actually never tracking macros again, because I had the wrong macros for my body. And now look at me. I am like the spokesperson for macros. I love it, because when you have the right numbers that actually work for you, your body is going to respond so much better, and it's going to be so much better of an experience as well. And you're not going to feel restricted in your macros at all. Another stupid little thing that I see a lot of the times is cooked versus uncooked with your macro tracking. So for instance, like there are logs in MyFitnessPal that's like cooked chicken versus uncooked chicken. So the rule of thumb that I like to think of is, when something is cooked, you weigh it cooked, you log it cooked. Obviously, something's uncooked, you weigh it uncooked, and then you log it uncooked. You don't want to like weigh an uncooked item and logged it as cooked, if that makes sense. So a lot of times people will be like, get really thrown off with, like, for instance, like making rice, because rice, like half a cup dry is a certain amount. You want to log it as dry and weigh it as dry. You don't want to log it as cooked. Now I'm like confusing myself, but basically, like, if it says a half a cup cooked on the label, you want to log it as that and weigh it as that. You don't want to cook it and then weigh it, because that's not going to be an accurate log. So weigh is cooked, log is cooked. That is the rule of thumb, and just be consistent with whatever you're logging. Don't think too much into it. It is not going to matter that much in the grand scheme of things. I have one entry I use for my chicken, one entry I use for my steak, and I just consistently do that, because whatever you do consistently over time, it's going to be fine. And you know what? You're going to be directionally correct. So don't worry about like if something is absolutely perfect. When it comes to tracking anything, it's going to have a little bit of variation, and that is okay. And that is the general just rule of thumb with things, is like it's not going to be perfect, and that is fine because every item of food is going to have a little bit of variety. Like for instance, the steak that I'm making tonight might have a little bit more fat than the steak I made the other night. And like that is just normal when it comes to tracking your food. So don't overthink it, but try to be as accurate as possible, because if you're not being accurate, you're probably not going to get the results that you want, and you can be wildly off. I have been going over the gals in my Bikini Body Bootcamp, their macros and stuff like that in the group chat. And one common mistake that I've been seeing people make is that they're not deconstructing their items and they're just looking up something. So for instance, if you home make like chicken tacos and then you just look up like chicken tacos on MyFitnessPal, you're going to have a lot of variety. So what I would recommend you doing is actually deconstructing the items. So what I do when I make chicken tacos is I'm logging the tortilla, I'm logging the chicken, I'm logging the cabbage on top. And I honestly don't log cabbage. I'm just doing it for the example. The guacamole on top. So I'm deconstructing the item. I'm not just like looking up chicken tacos, if that makes sense, because the logged item in MyFitnessPal chicken tacos could be something wildly different and off from what you made particularly. And I do the same thing when I go into a restaurant. I deconstruct all of my food. So if I sit down in a restaurant and I order chicken fettuccine pasta, like I'm not just looking up chicken fettuccine pasta in MyFitnessPal and just logging that. I'm actually deconstructing that item. So I'm logging about how much chicken I had. I'm logging about how much pasta I had. I'm logging how much sauce I think was in it. So I think that that's the best way to go about it, just because there can be so much variety and you just don't know what that person that originally added in that log was. MyFitnessPal is really similar, and any other tracking app is really similar to Wikipedia in the sense that anyone can just add entries. So you don't want to just rely on some Joe Schmo's random entry and, I expect to get to your goals. Like it's going to have way too much. And also purely for the factor of learning about nutrition. The goal of tracking is not to do it for the rest of your life. So if you can take an active approach to macro tracking, and when you're deconstructing your item, you're going to learn a lot of things. Like, wow, I did not realize that fettuccine sauce had this much fat in it. And like, that's not something bad. It's just something that you're learning. So I like to take a really active approach when it comes to my macro tracking personally, and to be like, okay, I'm using this as an educational experience. It's not a pass fail system. It's not a good, bad system. It's just learning about nutrition and what is in these items. Like for instance, before tracking macros, I did not realize that salmon was so high in fat and kind of like moderate in protein. It's not super high in protein. So now when I'm making a high protein meal, I'm not necessarily like grabbing for the salmon, like I'm grabbing for chicken or something that is more higher in protein, lower in fat to balance out my macros. So taking an active approach in macro tracking and deconstructing your items is going to help so much when it comes to accuracy, and then also just the education aspect as well. So I love the deconstruct method. When you're going out to eat, that is my number one method I preach to my clients, is breaking down the item, because that will educate you as far as nutrition goes, and that will also make it so much more accurate. Another thing I do when I am eating out and I'm just like not sure exactly what they're putting in it, I don't stress. I know that, hey, my entry is not going to be perfect, but something is better than nothing. I will add a little bit of extra oil to account for the butter and stuff that they put on every single restaurant item, pretty much virtually. So I will log you usually like between 5 to 10 grams of like olive oil or butter or something, just to have that extra fat content as well. Because just a little bit of fat can definitely add up and cause you to go into a little bit of like a calorie surplus, which is fine from time to time. But if you have a specific goal that you want to achieve, you definitely want to be accurate more than you are inaccurate. So something is better than nothing when it comes to tracking. Don't just look at something and get overwhelmed and not track. Like use it as an opportunity to learn. You will get better and better when it comes to your macro tracking skill. So that is what I do, is I sit at a restaurant, or even beforehand. This is another pro tip. Look at the menu beforehand. I'm such a menu beforehand kind of girl. I look at the menu beforehand, I choose what item I want, and then I will actually pre-log that item in my macros. So that way when I go to the restaurant that night, I know what I'm having, it's already logged in, and I've already hit my macros for the day. And that's what I do. And it really, really helps, especially when I'm in a calorie deficit season. That is so key for me. So, for instance, when I go out to eat, especially right now, I'm in a calorie deficit right now. I am looking up the menu beforehand. I'm logging what I want to have for that evening, and then I'm building the rest of my day around that and having it accordingly. That way, I can go to dinner, I can enjoy a dirty martini, can enjoy a steak, enjoy some mac and cheese, and be completely on track with my calorie deficit goals. It's amazing. It makes a world of a difference. You're not wondering like, oh, did I go over my calories for the day? Like, you know, and you're staying on track and you're able to actually get to your goals and have the balance. I think it's more restrictive to put yourself on a restrictive meal plan and to cut out foods and whatever. Like, plan ahead, use it as an opportunity to educate yourself and know the bigger picture of macros is that you're not going to have to track forever. So that was a whole tangent, but those are my tips on eating out. And those are my tips on just in general, making sure you're not just like adding in entries just on a whim. Another thing that I see a lot of people make is the bites, licks, and tastes that they don't account for. So you don't want to think about this in like a restrictive way. Like if you have a bite of chips, okay, fine. I did that literally yesterday. I went in because I bought these siete chips. I made the mistake of buying a whole Costco-sized bag of spicy siete chips. And let me tell you, they are healthy hot Cheetos. And if you need to have your hot Cheeto fix and you don't want to just be eating a ton of carcinogens, please go buy those from Costco. But side note, anyways, it's okay from time to time to have a bite, lick, whatever. And especially when I'm in maintenance, I am not even really thinking about those. Like I'll have a couple throughout the day. I don't make it a habit, whatever. But when I'm in a deficit phase, and I'm trying to reach a goal, I am trying to limit and eliminate any sort of mindless eating, bites, licks, and tastes. So if you're a person that you realize like you grab the last little bit of PB&J from your kids' meals, or maybe you grab a couple fries out of your kids' Happy Meal, or maybe you're walking past the candy jar at work and having a bite, like those things are going to add up big time throughout the day. Think about all of the little bites, licks, and tastes that you have, like the peanut butter, the lick of hummus off the knife. And think about if you put all of those things into a plastic bag. I know it's kind of a gross visual, but think about how much food you've had throughout the day just through bites, licks, and tastes. And it's actually amazing. Like even today, I had a Starburst and I did not track that. Like I probably should go put that in my MyFitnessPal, but I'm probably not going to. But like those little things throughout the day add up. And like I said, this is not for like a restrictive thing or like, oh my gosh, I'm being obsessive with it. Like it's just about mindfulness and noticing that you're doing it, because a lot of my clients get into a habit of bites, licks, and tastes, and that causes them to go into a calorie surplus throughout the day. So they're hitting their macros, they're working super hard, and they're like, why am I not seeing the fat loss that I want to see? And it's literally because they are mindlessly eating and they're not thinking about it. And that is just a habit that basically you need to break, because it's not good to just be snacking throughout the day and doing it out of emotion. Sit down, have a meal if you're hungry. And that is a way healthier relationship with food than going into the chip thing. And like, there's a reason why you're doing that. Like mindset wise, it's not just like happening by accident. Like you are doing that intentionally, subconsciously, honestly. So that is something to really take note of if you are a person that you notice you're doing bites, licks, and tastes. And if you eliminate that completely, you will feel a ton better. You're probably going to make more progress in your fitness journey. And you know what? If you know you're a bites, licks, and taste kind of person, own up to it, log it. Like think about that bag at the end of the night that you're filling up that you're not logging. Like that could be potentially putting you into a calorie surplus or at maintenance. You could be in a deficit right now, like according to your macros, but according to your bites, licks, and tastes on top of your macros, you're actually not in a deficit. So you want to make sure that you are accounting for those, or at least being mindful that habit that you have is not very beneficial when it comes to being in a calorie deficit. The next thing that I see people make a mistake with is not planning ahead. You're not going to hit your calories or your macros by accident. You're going to have at least some sort of plan when you are going into your day. So when someone is totally new to calories or macros or whatever, I tell them, create your perfect day in your macros and then follow that. Like there's no shame in creating like a little bit of a meal plan for yourself. I believe that having some sort of repetition is really helpful when it comes to your macros, and it eliminates a lot of decision fatigue. Like think about how much time you spend thinking like, what am I going to have for lunch? And then you just end up having something and maybe that's unhealthy. Like, think about how much stress you can eliminate from your life if you just plan ahead what you're going to eat for the day. Like, you don't even need to think about it. I literally put myself on autopilot, especially during the week. I'm eating the same breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. And I literally don't have to think about food. It's amazing. And I enjoy all my meals. So if that's something that works for you, 100% lean into that. And I think a lot of people, they're like, well, I'm busy. I have things to do. Perfect. Then you have the meals already set up in your macros and you know exactly what you need to do to get to your goals. I like to think of pre-logging. So that's kind of the strategy, like planning ahead, pre-logging for the day. I go in the night before or in the morning and I log my day. I like to think about that as like the GPS to getting to my goals. I'm not going to accidentally get to my destination by just like taking some random turns and just kind of like being willy-nilly about it. Like, you're going to definitely want to have some sort of plan going into the day, whether that is meal prepping, pre-logging, having some sort of rough estimate on what to do, because it's going to be really hard to just kind of go into the day and just like freely track and just like hope you get to your calorie goal or your macro goal. You're going to want to plan ahead. And that is a big mistake I see with people, is that they just go into the day and think like, hey, I'm just going to like try to eat and like try to hit my goal. Like, you're going to end up with 100 grams of protein at the end of the day, and no one wants to be chugging egg whites. At least I don't. So want to go into the plan with, or the day with a plan. So those are all of the top macro tracking mistakes that I see. There probably are more that I didn't talk about today, but those are the only ones I thought of off the top of my head. And if you're guilty of these right now, totally don't worry. Macros is something that is an acquired skill. It takes to learn. There is a learning curve, and that is okay. Macros, though, can be such a freeing tool and something that can help you get to your goals and allow you to fit in every single one of your favorite foods. So it is such a beautiful skill to learn, and I definitely encourage you to at least take some time and effort to learn that skill if you can. So that is everything I have for today. Hopefully you all have an amazing day. Make sure to follow my podcast, like, subscribe, all of the things, and I will chat with you all next week. Bye.